Why are used Mercedes so cheap? I just found out the hard way. Yeah, we've owned this Mercedes-Benz now for a few short years, and I've talked about some of the issues that we've had. There's some obvious ones. Why are they so cheap? Well, there's an overabundance of them on the market. There's clearly a lot of leasing opportunities, some great incentives for other buyers, but I found out recently why, in fact, they're really so cheap. The reason a lot of people don't really talk about, and I'm here to talk about it, because here's a 2018 Mercedes-Benz C300 Benz. This has the 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It's a fun car with 250 horsepower thereabouts. It has all-wheel drive because this car here, it has the 4MATIC system. That means you're driving the front and the rear wheels, predominantly a rear-wheel drive car. But you'll notice that when they describe it by 4MATIC, that's a nice upgrade. You get the pop-out rear tail backup camera. I think it's a prettier car than a lot of the Beamers in the class. I'm not a big fan of the 4 Series BMWs, unless you get M4, but I'm not loving that coupe style. I like the sedans of the BMWs, but I'm not a big fan of the 4-doors. That's a personal opinion. Not the way they drive, not the reliability, but from the cosmetic and the design perspective, I like the Mercedes better. So that's why we bought this vehicle. I mean, you have some great mirrors. You get the bigger sunroof. That's a great factor. Another reason why we bought the Mercedes-Benz. But it's great. You get such great value with pieces like that. A lot of these luxury cars in their same competition, they have a regular sunroof, not the big panoramic. You have a much, much more bold and imposing front end than a lot of their competition. Audi is very simple. BMW is still very simple and contemporary, although they've been changed on the 4 Series with the bucktooth. These ones just felt to me like they have a design that's very, very cool and interesting, but it's not about the design and the value for the money, because you look at these and you wonder why the price is so cheap. Start scouring the classifieds and you think, how are these so cheap? They're such cool cars. Or Mercedes. Everybody heard Mercedes runs forever, right? Wrong. So I went for driving this car this morning. I just did a quick errand. Unfortunately, we have a check engine light, and this is brand new. This just popped up this morning. Now the problem is, it's not just check engine lights. We've had a series of codes and faults over the course of the last couple years. Let me just turn this off for a second, because I don't want to run it too long. Because actually what I ended up doing was I grabbed my code reader like this, I plugged into it down in the OBD2 port right under here, and I managed to pull a code. A couple years ago, I took this car into the dealership. They basically had it in for a quick service on a Saturday morning, and the dealers were trying to rush our car in and out. We had it booked in on a Saturday morning. They're usually only doing, morning sessions for services and minor services, but we booked it in. They got it in. The car, seemed to take a long time to get in the shop. It was getting close to closing time, and then we went and approached the service writer, and they said, oh, sorry, we'll hurry up and get it. They took it into the shop. They did their basic service, which the car called for, which meant that, there's some basic inspections. There's an oil change service that had to be done. There's your dipstick and oil. So they had to do an oil service. That was the main thing we were trying to deal with. What we weren't really bargaining for was the fact that they ended up shampooing the engine. They told us in not so many terms that they sprayed the engine down, and this was in the middle of winter time. This was December, January, somewhere in there, and it was very, very cold outside. We never asked for that, but everybody who knows that you do not spray pressurized water under the hood of any of these cars. There's way too many sensors and electrical components. You get water, you push water down into the clips, and then all of a sudden you have shorting, or what you end up with is parts that start creating high impedance or high resistance connections, because water starts to corrode some of those terminals. And there's a lot of electrical systems under the hood here. So lo and behold, shortly after that, we start developing codes, weird codes, fault codes, codes related to sensors, lights, and it would go all the way around. It wasn't check engine light, it was just codes for system failures. We took it in, they pulled the codes, they said, oh yeah, this is minor. They rebooted it, and Bob's your uncle. Long story short, between changing batteries and rebooting it a couple of times, we realized there was more to this equation. The problem is our warranty ran out, the problem reappeared. So we knew that this wasn't good. We weren't satisfied, and I want to show you some paperwork I managed to dig up here. There's a sheet right here. This is a warranty extension for an intake line, partial load ventilation valve. Now, I read this before, but now this is where it gets real, because I pulled with my code reader over here, and I was able to see on the dash that there was an actual fault, and the fault was a P025E, P205E, I think, that had to do with the PCV valve. So they started Googling. The more I started Googling, the more I realized there's people that have gone out and spent $2,500, $3,000 for the repair, for this PCV repair. That's devastating. Could you imagine? So you buy these cars used, drive it for a year or two, and all of a sudden you got to throw a $3,000 or $4,000 repair at it, because what happens is, apparently I'm told it's about a 8 hour, 6, 7, 8 hour labor job plus the part, which is $500 or $600 Canadian. You're probably looking at $2,500 to get that part replaced. Way too rich for my blood. So you buy this car, you buy it slightly used, the warranty runs out, and all of a sudden you get tackled with bills like $3,000, $4,000. But that's where this comes in. And fortunately, we got this paper, and I'm glad I kept it. And I started Googling and realizing that they said because of a faulty component and because of alleged lawsuits, Mercedes-Benz was actually sort of inadvertently forced to replace this part free of charge. Now, I called the dealer this morning and found out, based on the PCV, he couldn't confirm the code, and it's over the phone, and they'll never do that over the phone anyway. They always say they have to diagnose it, and of course that's $250 diagnostic charges, and you're never getting out of this scot-free anyhow. He basically said, we've got to look at it, we got to diagnose it, and if that's the problem, we've got to send it into Mercedes. They assess, they evaluate, they have to actually approve it. It's not the local dealership. Apparently Mercedes corporate has to assess that code and the issues, and then they're the ones that advocate, and they're the ones that are going to sign off on the repair. Now, we're keeping our fingers crossed. I do have faith that I think this is going to be looked after, and I believe it's going to be rectified by Mercedes. I really hope it is. PCV, the code, everything sort of lines up with everything I'm reading and seeing, and even what the dealer service writer said was that Mercedes did actually offer an extended warranty on that part. Apparently there's some foam on the newer upgraded part that you'll see, and it's down in this area right down in here, that if you see the foam on there, that's the replacement part. The original part is not that well made, and there's oil leakage you'll see in the electrical connections, and it's pretty time invasive. They got to run behind the engine, and it's a pretty involved job to do. It's not just about that failure, because any car can fail. You know, Porsches can fail, Mercedes, BMW, even Lexus and Toyota have had failures. The question is, what's a general reliability? And it seems to me that is a junky part, from what I can tell. And everybody, and on the forums, what everybody's saying, everything I'm reading is it's even agreed that it's a substandard part, that Mercedes is offering an upgraded part, and that's now warranted for 15 years or something like 241,000 kilometers. So that now is a confirmation to me that the original part maybe not the best quality, and that's unfortunate, because this is what's going on in the industry. European car makers are putting a lot more plastic. I'm gonna say it, some parts that aren't necessarily of the best quality. So why are some of these cars cheap? Well, it's because of things like that. You get one or two of those ugly failures, and it just, everybody shies away and they say, screw it, I'm gonna go buy a used Toyota or a Lexus because I can trust that, and it's not going to cause me all kinds of big heartache. Used Lexus vehicles quite often hold their value a lot better than used Mercedes. I'm going to give you another example, okay? If you have an issue with this headlight, I'm told, a technical issue, there's some modules that are behind here. If one of those modules fails, you are looking at replacing the whole component. Now, this headlight with the modules, it's about $5,000. If your insurance doesn't cover this, this here could be in fact a $5,000 repair, or maybe more with labor involved. If you're liking the video so far, you're gonna love the rest of the channel. Be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, and don't forget the notifications bell so you know when the next amazing videos come. Now, there's other reasons why used Mercedes are so cheap, and some of the reasons I actually am good with. I'm totally fine with it because it makes sense. A lot of these European cars drive way better, like straight up. If you've never driven a Mercedes and you're coming from, say, a Toyota camp or a Honda camp, and you're like, I don't get it, I don't understand why people pay so much money for that crap. Well, there is a reason. They drive better, they perform better, the ergonomics are much better. You get tires that are higher speed rated on a lot of the European cars, because remember, a lot of these vehicles are spec'd from Europe, and a lot of them hit the Autostrada, the Autobahn, and are designed for higher speeds. Now, I'm not taking a C300 at 250 kilometers an hour, and nobody is around here, and if you are, you're probably going to be having a talk with the cops. The point is, they build these cars in that way, and they build them in Europe, and then they, you just export them here. So we essentially have the same product, and so they're built for that type of performance. And so you're getting tires that generally quite often are a little bit more expensive. Smaller sidewalls means you hit a pothole or damage something. These tires are going to be a little bit more expensive than you're finding on a Toyota Camry. These brakes, you'll look right here, there's cross-drilled right there, cross-drilled brakes. These brakes here are going to cost you a lot more money. When it comes time to replace these discs, you're going to spend a little bit more money in doing that because they're just bigger. There's just more to that disc. They're not the cheaper jobber brands you find from, you know, Pep Boys or Canadian Tire. Rather, you're going to spend a bit more there. You have larger calipers, bigger pads. All the brake parts are going to be more. The tire parts are going to be more. Suspension parts are going to be more, because even the suspension components, they're generally a lot more durable. Premium parts underneath this, you know, under the skin of these vehicles. Should you have problems with electrical issues? You know, a lot of Toyotas, Hondas might have a simpler setup, which isn't bad. So there's good and bad to all of this, but you just want to know why these used Mercedes are so cheap. It's because of cost of everything. Parts, brakes, wear and tear items, you know, even electrical components when they fail. Looking inside of these vehicles too, they're pretty robust. Now, there's not a lot to fail in here, but when they do, I mean, depending on where they're getting a lot of these parts from, you know, a lot of electric components, and we know a lot of these screens and modules aren't cheap. And for some reason, you know, parts from Bosch and some of the other European manufacturers, or whether they're better built or not, is irrelevant, because we know a lot of these so-called reputable brands are also importing from, you know, other countries and other markets that don't build the best products. You're just getting the brand name, but you're not getting necessarily the quality that goes with that. So some of these parts may have a substandard build quality to them, but they charge them at European car standard prices. And that's why a lot of these cars end up costing so much to repair. Electronic modules, the complexity of these vehicles, the high shop rates, you know, the cost to get these vehicles diagnosed. Just like this piece of paper right here, I was told I got to bring it in, so they've got to diagnose it first. Again, shop rates are generally a little higher with a Mercedes Benz. They're lovely cars to drive, but you have to understand what you're getting into. It all adds up to one big conglomerate of reasons as to why these cars just don't hold their value. Because during the warranty period, well, everything's lovely. Even if you get a CPO or an extended warranty and you can drive these vehicles, you know, till the cows come home, that's great. They're fun to drive. But what happens when that warranty runs out? What happens when the dealer no longer will support the repair of any unexpected failure? Now that's up to your wallet to cover, right? And so that's what I've been experiencing with some of these vehicles, but that's also how I've been managing to afford and own a lot of these European cars, is by fixing a lot of it myself. And to keep them in the fleet, I've had to learn a skill set that a lot of people aren't interested in, or don't have, or don't want to have. A lot of people don't want to spend their time on the driveway fixing their car. A lot of people just want to buy that new car, own it for the warranty period, and then trade it in when it's time to move on. So that's totally the game. Now, because all of the vast abundance of incentives, because let's face it, Mercedes is huge on incentives. There's a lot of people that get into a market that they never once dreamed of. You know, 25, 40 years ago, you'd never dream of a Mercedes unless you were well heeled. Now it seems like just about every Tom, Dick, and Harry is driving a Mercedes Benz, and that's okay. There's the entry level. You've got the CLAs, GLAs, A-class cars, all the way up to the S-classes, Maybachs, you name it, and everything in between. But not everybody who owns a Mercedes has that type of bankroll. So there gets a point where you just have to understand what you're getting into. The fact that if you're going to own these cars outside of warranty, you're going to pay dearly out of your wallet, or you've got to learn a new skill set, and that's to fix your own car. Now, I love driving these cars. For me, it was worth the sacrifice, but for not everybody it is. The win is finding these cars for a great bang for buck, but I do it at the cost of maybe half of what it was new. But not everybody's willing to take that chance, and that's a big reason. When the markets start to flood with extra inventory from lease returns and cars that are coming back off the market, or as cars age, the only people that get stuck buying these cars are people like me that are good DIYers, or young drivers that don't have as much income and love their fun brands like BMW, Mercedes, Audi. They all love those and they like to fix on them. But those are the people that unfortunately get stuck with a lot of these problems and either end up scrapping these cars, chuck them, or just learn the skill set that I've learned. It's an interesting conundrum. There's huge value in buying a used Mercedes, but that's why used Mercedes-Benz are so cheap.